Hello, everybody. Welcome to my weird and wonderful world. And as you may or may not know, today we are Wednesday, January 8th. Yesterday was my birthday, and I was going to make a video yesterday, but being my birthday and all, I made a decision that I kind of want to take the day off and do my own thing and have fun on my birthday. And I ended up, having some alcohol and doing a couple of puffs, and then I got kind of tired and lazy, and it was like, I was putting it off making a video, but I definitely wanted to make a video yesterday. So I apologize for not making a video yesterday because even though it was my birthday, I really feel like I let you down when I don't make a video. I love making videos every day if I could and wish I would, but sometimes things just kind of happen and you don't, you get into a certain mood, and yeah. So I just want to say that. But I am going to ramble on a little bit on this video. I don't know how long it's going to be. I got a lot to show and tell, and basically I want to talk about, and this was inspired by by Scott Lade from the Proud Corner, and he did a video of why he doesn't like the 80s, why he hates the 80s, because he has, like, particularly in music, I think it was, but other stuff too. But for me, because the 80s represents my teenage years. It, from the ages of 9 to 19, that was my that was my the 80s for me. And I can show you from my collection everything that I have from the 80s that I was listening to and most likely had in the 80s. There's a lot, still a lot missing, but I think this is a great representation of where my 80s was. When it comes to on the very basic level, okay, we have of course the Michael Jackson Thrillers and the Prince's Purple Rains, and these were very monumental releases in the 80s that kind of started off pretty well. This is 82 and this here is 84. So yeah, 82 and 84, and yeah, so these were big. And even at the end of the 80s, in like 89, Prince doing a soundtrack for a Batman movie. I still really like that, but that still counts in the 80s. Now, I have some 80s music here that are that's from the 80s, like some stuff from Sparks. I got stuff from Rush. I have stuff, here and there that is from the 80s, but I wasn't listening to that stuff in the 80s. I'm going to show you from my collection stuff that I was more focused on listening to in the 80s, and definitely had all of this stuff for sure as much as I could. Probably mostly on cassette. The 80s for me, it was almost pretty much exclusively on cassette. And there is some of this that I did have on in vinyl for sure. And it's only basically, I swear, very late very late 80s, like almost at the turn of this of the next decade into the 90s, where I started getting into DVDs, not DVDs, CDs. And so most of this, yeah, I probably had on cassette. I was definitely into and listening to, and mostly thanks to Much Music. Being having access to Much Music in the 80s was a big source, and also 90s, but we're here to talk about the 80s. So of course, coming around the 80s, because the 70s, I was mostly focused on the band Kiss more than anything else. So beyond Kiss, there was really not much from the 70s that I could call my own. That was really like music that I cultivated. I mean, it was the stuff I was aware of, like the Cat Stevens, for example, or the Alice Coopers and the Led Zeppelins. There was stuff on our radar as a young kid, but during my teenage years of the '80s where I started getting into what they call the Big Four. And of course, it basically started with this in many rights with Master of Puppets, but then going back and then hearing Ride the Lightning, and of course their debut of Kill 'Em All, but that was a little bit after the fact. It really did start with Master of Puppets, hearing that first, and this being the next new album, like being a Metallica fan after hearing Master of Puppets and then going back and listening to the earlier stuff. This was the first Metallica album that I seen on release, that I was actually anticipating coming out and loving it after finding out, of course, about Cliff Burton's demise. Unfortunate, so unfortunate. Such a great loss to the music world for sure. Imagine what this could have been if if Cliff would have still been around. Not saying that not saying that Jason Newsted didn't do a good job, of course, because he did. You just can't really hear it on there. Where's the bass? That's the '80s. But I was listening to, of course, stuff like Anthrax. So I got this here set of the Island Years with, of course, spreading the disease amongst the living, State of Euphoria, and although no, Persistence of Time really kind of doesn't count because that was 1990, so it was right at the end of that '80s era. But is all that stuff, especially those albums, and of course I cannot like these two, Fistful of Metal and Armed and Dangerous, which came before this stuff here. This was just as important as the rest of this. I first started hearing of Anthrax with Madhouse, and then there was what was the other one? Yeah, Madhouse, and there was another one for sure. I think it was either Armed and Dangerous or Aftershock, but yeah, it was the video for Madhouse for sure. But there was other stuff too. Oh yeah, let's continue. But then, of course, South of Heaven. I do have Seasons in the Abyss, but again, that's 1990. This here is 1988, so that's the '80s awesomeness that we're into. And also right at the end of the '80s, and like in 1989, Testament with this album here of Practice What You Preach. So that kind of sent off now some of the last great, awesome, heavy, like thrash slash heavy metal from the '80s that I would listen to. And of course, I cannot forget all the being a big fan of Iron Maiden. Not basically starting with Power Slave. I think that was the first real thing that I had heard. Maybe with Number of the Beast. I'm not sure where I started, but I know that all this stuff here, starting with Iron Maiden, Killers, Number of the Beast for sure, uh, Peace of Mind, Power Slave, especially Power Slave. That was the peak, the pinnacle, the capstone of perfection for Iron Maiden. This being one of the greatest all-time heavy metal live albums there is, that was definitely a part of it. And of course, there's Somewhere in Time. Somewhere in Time being so friggin' awesome. I still need more. Yeah, I still definitely still need more Iron Maiden. I need to get all the rest of it after that. But this here, all these for sure, was a big part of the '80s sound for me. And not, of course, not to also exclude the Aussie stuff from that time too. Of course, and I'm pretty sure, yeah, it all started, of course, with Bark at the Moon, but then going back and hearing Blizzard of Oz, that was always good. Diary of a Madman, and then there's of course, Speak of the Devil. Yeah, Speak of the Devil is awesome. That's great live stuff. Then of course you got Bark at the Moon. That's pretty much what I discovered. The first thing I ever heard of Ozzy was from that. And then and then you get the Ultimate Sin, which I still really do love. Then of course when this first came out, like not too long after Randy Rose passing, and this is still probably also up in my top five favorite live albums of all time. I This is a really great show. Like if he wouldn't have, again, just like Cliff Burton, if he would have stood been around and being able to do stuff like what he would have done if he was still alive and did this, how different this would be. But I still like that. That's still '80s awesomeness. That was stuff I was listening to in the '80s. Now, on a lighter note, okay, because this is all like heavy metal and rock and roll, like heavy rock and roll and stuff. Two LPs that I used to own, as especially when I first saw the video for Luca on Much Music, have to have this. It wouldn't be the '80s without Suzanne Vega, because right from the beginning, when I first heard that and this first came out, then going back and hearing these two I had to have on vinyl, and then of course now I get the special edition. The best sounding albums I have are these two here. They're so crisp and clear, and yeah, there's no greater albums that I own that sound better than these two. Just saying. But I had these in the '80s on vinyl, 100%. I loved them. And then of course I had already been kind of listening to AC/DC, but then these are the ones from the '80s that I have, starting with Back in Black, of course. I think the first thing I got really, or somebody had gotten, was Fly on the Wall. That was the first AC/DC vinyl that I remember kind of being seeing in the flesh, and then going back and getting all other like the stuff from the '70s and that. But but then again, when the movie Maximum Overdrive came out with Stephen King, and this album came out, I really love, especially that title track of Who Made Who. I love Who Made Who. I mean the soundtrack is decent, because I mean it's a little disappointing that they didn't come up with some all new material, that they had to take stuff from their old, from their catalog. But they also added two very rare instrumentals that they did for the movie. So having two rare instrumentals, because they're not known for doing instrumentals whatsoever. So I really always love that. And of course, Blow Up Your Video. That's another '80s goodness with Heat Seeker, Mean Streak, and more. Yeah, that's really good stuff. Now, also on another side of the '80s, I was a big, yeah, way back in the '80s as a teenager. How could you not be a fan of Weird Al Yankovic? So and of course it pretty much started with. I'm pretty sure it started when I first seen the video for "Eat It." Eat It, and on Dare to Be Stupid. Is that on Dare to Be Stupid? What is that off of? That off of In 3D, right? Eat It, yeah, yeah. So it was from Eat It in 3D. That was the first time I heard of Weird Al Yankovic. I didn't even know really much about that first album, his self-titled album, until much later. But during the 80s, oh yes, I was listening to all of these, of course, with Dare to Be Stupid, and then but I didn't hear Polka Party until much later. But it was sort of on my radar. A couple of those songs were for sure, and then there's Even Worse with that has, of course, Fat, and I remember when that video first came out. But I think one of the underdogs is UHF. I actually really love this album, which is basically a soundtrack to the movie by the same name. But I actually really do love this album. It's probably in my top five favorite Weird Al albums for sure. But that's again another major part of the '80s for me. And then there's this whole smorgasbord of different odds and ends again that I would listen to in the '80s. Let's start with some Scorpions and like Blackout and other couple of albums that I don't have, but I still need to get more. But this is the only studio album I have of Scorpions. I do have a couple of the greatest hits, but they don't count. But yeah, that is definitely something from the '80s that I was listening to. A band like Accept, this is the only one I have, but I still need to get Balls to the Wall. I still need to get Metal Heart and so on and so forth. But I'm a big fan of Accept. And of course, in the '80s, I was listening to the Quiet Riot, especially with mental health, mental health and Condition Critical. Those two albums particularly was a big part of the '80s for me, so that's why I have to have that collection for sure. Also, this stuff here from Twisted Sister, it wouldn't be the '80s without "We're Not Going to Take It" and so on and so forth. Yeah, it's so good. I wanna rock. For me, it was the one I really liked was I like "You Can't Stop Rock and Roll." I'm me. That was good. The Price was always a good one. So yeah, your Twisted Sister, which is always good. I wouldn't mind getting some of their actual studio albums, like Stay Hungry, Come Out and Play, and so on and so forth. I mean, they do have some pretty good stuff. Of course, this was a big part of the '80s for sure. The first time I heard Dire Straits and Brothers in Arms, and it was actually not necessarily just Money for Nothing, but it was also the video for Walk of Life, which was always good. One of my favorite songs on here is actually Your Latest Trick. I love the saxophone in that and how that I like the lyrics too. And then of course there was even that I was aware of this and I liked it, and it was definitely for the for weirdly enough, it was for the song the Flame, which pretty much. But Don't Be Cruel, also that cover song, Don't Be Cruel. I like that too. So that's why this was something I always kind of had. And so when I had a chance to find this secondhand, I snatched it up. And of course, I'm talking about Cheap Trick, Lap of Luxury, and then even this album by Gowan, Strange Animal. This, like, especially the title track, "You're a Strange Animal" and "A Criminal Mind." Such, yeah, I always liked Gowan for sure, Lawrence Gowan. And then there's this here, Tom Petty, "Full Moon Fever." This was a major part of the '80s for me also. You know, so what year was this? '89. So at the end of the '80s, we're, nice punctuation for the 80s. This Free Fallin' was big. For me, the big attractor at the time was Running Down a Dream. That was a song that really I loved. But the whole album is such a good, awesome album. The whole thing is good. Not a weak song on there. And let's face it, Guns N' Roses, Appetite for Destruction. That was a big part of at the very end of the 80s, at around 88 when this came out, you know, and seeing those videos, Paradise City and Welcome to the Jungle for the first time, and then hearing this perfect masterpiece of a. I mean, say what you will about Axl Rose, if you like his voice or not, you know, this album here was phenomenal. It's still a great listen. I can still put this on and love every second of it. There is nothing wrong with this album. You may not like where Guns N' Roses went later on in their career. Say what you will about the Use Your Illusion 1s and 2 and so on. I mean, those are okay. Those are decent. But this tops them all. And then, last but not least, I think that then I've exhausted everything from my 80s, of everything I have from the 80s. I have, of course, these two albums from ZZ Top, Eliminator, which I have the special one with the DVD in there. And of course, I always really loved Afterburner. These two albums, yeah, these are major, major 80s awesomeness, because these represent the 80s for me. And again, there's so much I wish I had still from way back when that I don't have anymore. I mean, I wouldn't mind getting some Duran Duran. I mean, I have a Platinum Blonde greatest hits that should count, but I want to actually more include their studio albums more so than any greatest hits that may have came out after the fact. But yeah, I think that's about everything I wanted to go through with this. Now that's pretty much most of the music I was listening to in the 80s. And there's other stuff too, for sure, that I was into in the 80s and I don't probably have, and if I see them, I will get them for sure. But so much of my music is from all, like, I got a lot of stuff from the 50s and 60s and 70s now. I got a lot of stuff from the 90s and 2000s and 2010s and now the early 20s. I got a lot of stuff from that. Like, so yeah, that takes up a whole other, yeah, that'll take a lot more other videos. Okay, I'm just going to let you go, and wanted to make a nice long video for you guys for this post birthday video. Like I said, I wanted to make a video yesterday, but I should have, but yeah, I kind of fizzled out and kind of got too tired and lazy to do so. So I want to apologize. It's never my intention to be lazy for you guys, because I love you guys out there. You guys are the best. So if you've seen this for the first time, please consider subscribing to my channel. I will greatly appreciate and love you forever. Comment. I will do whatever I can in my power to comment back. Don't be afraid of that like button. And as always, just please be safe. Take care. I will see you on the flip side. And please, everybody, have a great day, evening, morning, night, or afternoon, wherever you may be. Peace, everybody.